What's up? What's up? You know, I'm starting to wonder whether this podcast was a good idea. You know, for the last 5 minutes, I've just been setting up just in complete silence, you know, putting on a wig and a wizard costume. And I was thinking, you know, is this something that like I really want to be doing? You know, I think it is. But like, at what point is the self-awareness lost? You know, is this cringe? And that's the question to ask sometimes. You know, is what I'm doing cringe? But the real question is does it matter? You know, because I think what a lot of people need to learn these days is that we need to embrace the cringe. You know, to be cringe is to be free. I am aware that I'm saying this while dressed as a wizard on a green screen. I mean, this isn't a green screen, this is real. But you know, there was just this moment of reflection, of, you know, what are you doing, bro? You know what I mean? What are you doing? But you know what? I've started this, you know, and I'm gonna see it through. It was a good idea when I first, you know, dressing up like a wizard, getting on a mic. That sounded like a good idea. And now I've just been doing it, you know. It's like you get in this flow state of you're just doing the thing, and you forget to say, hey, is this good? You know, is this a good idea? Because you already thought it was a good idea, so you just have to commit. And you know what? I'm committed. Okay, I'm still a little bit ill. I don't know if anyone saw the WizWalk episode that I did. Shout out WizWalk, but I'm still a little bit ill. But you know what? We're powering through. You know, we're gonna have a good week, guys. You know, hopefully this comes out Friday. You know, it's Friday WizBreak time. I know I haven't really stuck to that, but no one noticed because no one's watching. You know, that's the other thing. You know, no one's watching. So who cares, man? You know, I think something we all need to learn is to embrace the cringe. You know, like I think going into high school, everyone around that age kind of gets this thing of like trying so hard not to be, I don't want to keep using the word cringe, but cringe, you know, but you are, everyone is. That's how you learn, that's how you grow. If you don't look back on yourself and go like, oh, that was kind of lame what I was doing back then you haven't grown, you know, and that's okay. You know, shout out my cringe lords. You know, you know when you see them on Instagram, like you scroll through and you see these people who are like just doing their own thing, and it's so easy to like laugh at them, and it's kind of funny sometimes, you know, because it's kind of funny, but they're probably way happier, you know, because they're just doing their shit. And sometimes I think we should all learn something from that. You know, we should just do whatever. We should just do our thing. Which I guess is what I'm doing right now. But I mean, the fact that I have to call out that that I know this is a little bit lame is I kind of defeat the point, though. You know, kind of defeat the point. But yeah, I wonder if 10-year-old me thought this is what I'd be doing when I was 20. You know, I don't know. I think 10-year-old me would. I don't know if proud is the right word, but I think 13-year-old me would respect that I have a podcast, so shout out. But I mean, it's not like it's hard to make one. I used to make them all the time in high school. You know, I had a lot, and they were all pretty bad. You know, I would talk about shit, and you realize you're like 14, 13, like you have nothing to talk about. I mean, I guess I'm 20 and I still don't really have anything to talk about, but you know, it's kind of it's like the videos of those kids, you know, they're like. Where they're like, what pizza do you guys like? And then they're like, oh, I usually go for pepperoni. Like, they're like 13, they have a podcast, and it's like they have just zero life experience. It was kind of like that. You know, it was kind of like, I guess I would talk about movies, though, so I had something to talk about instead of just pizza. Also, who the fuck doesn't like pepperoni on pizza? Like, I don't know. Like, okay, you know what? That I like... See, now I'm doing it. I'm doing the same thing. I was about to go into cheese pizza and shit. No, shout out cheese pizza, shout out pepperoni pizza. Just eat whatever the fuck you want. Pineapple on pizza, yeah, fuck it, you know. do whatever. It's fruit. Tomatoes are fruit. We've all been there. We've all heard these things, you know. You know, I was thinking a lot about when I was younger. I was talking to my Joe today about it. He was on episode 3. Shout out. I'm gonna get him on here soon. I was talking to him today about like birthdays, you know, back in the day, and I've missed that shit, man. Like, I think I miss it. I don't know, like, cause these days you have a birthday and it's just, you know, let's go and drink, or like let's go do something slightly different. Instead of going to a pub and drink, we might go to a club and drink, or, you know, go do karaoke, or just like get slightly more people to come out than usual. But like back in the day, it was like, you know, you had paintball, you had like laser quest, you went to the cinema, you went bowling, you know, you had those dud parties where it was just a hall and you would just like kind of like have like entertainment. I had one of those ones. It was terrible. It was a fucking trash birthday. I remember it like very vividly, you know. We had this, my parents like set it up and it was like, oh, we've rented out this hall, you know, this just like room for rent, you know. It was like a big, it wasn't a sports hall, but it was, I guess people would have like christenings there, and like, I mean, it'd be kind of weird if you had a wedding there, because it wasn't exactly the nicest place, but I mean, if you're gonna have like a shitty wedding, then it was probably the way you want to go. But yeah, they rented out this big hall, and I was like a little kid, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but I want to just be able to like run, you know. I want to be able to go play, you know. If you put me in a hall full of all my friends, it's like I want to like play TIG. I want to just like do my own shit. But, you know, my parents had this plan of, you know, they had like entertainment. There might have been a magician. I don't think there was a magician. I think there was just like not a clown, but like a dude. You know, just a kid, children's entertainer. And it's always like the weird older dudes, like, who aren't funny. And, you know, as an adult, you would never want to speak to them. You'd just be like, oh my God, this guy's insufferable. So he just like, oh, so that's kind of creepy, you know? I'm a children's entertainer. You know, I don't know if that's really what you want to be doing with your life, you know? I mean, if any of them are out there, you know, like, I'm not even going to apologize for that. That is kind of strange. I wouldn't do it personally. But yeah, they hired a children's entertainer who just, you know, like, I guess juggled and shit. But I didn't really like it, you know. I didn't want it. I didn't want this shit. I vividly remember just being like, I want to just play TIG or tag or whatever everyone calls it out there. We called it TIG, you know, like TIG you're it, tag you're it, whatever. But then you had Manhunt. Manhunt was the best one. I played a lot of Manhunt as a child. You know, it was like the game. So if you don't know, Manhunt is someone is the manhunter, I guess, or just someone is it. And when you tag someone else, when you TIG someone else, they then are on your team. So it's like infected in a Call of Duty, you know, like it's like they become the hunters until there's like one person left, and it's like then you win. And that, oh my God, remembering that shit, it was like, bro, I want to play Manhunt again. You know, that game was crazy. You know, because it was terrifying. Because as a kid, I used to go into the woods, you know, and I'd hang out with my brother who was 2 years older than me, and then they would always run into teenagers. Now, teenagers back then were this terrifying breed of, you know, like, just like a world that I didn't know. You know, I hung out, I guess I interacted with adults through like my parents and teachers and shit. I'd interacted with kids my age, but then teenagers, you know, with this thing that I didn't understand, and they were terrifying to me because I was always the youngest, you know. And we would get into some beef with these teenagers because some of them were like bad kids, and it was kind of scary. But I remember we used to play Manhunt with them. Now, as like a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old running around in the woods when there's like, you know, like 14-year-olds chasing after you, terrifying. You know, it was like, that's probably where I fucking gained anxiety is playing Manhunt in those woods, you know. Because I'd sit there and like hide and just be like, please no one find me, please no one find me. obviously when they find me, it's just like, oh, Tig, you know, I got you. But that feeling of running away, it's, that shit was terrifying. I vividly remember being in the grass, in the tall grass, like, you know, and there was these teenagers afterwards, and I was with this kid that I didn't even know. Oh, like, I knew him from school, but, like, I'd never spoke to him before, and we were both just, like, terrified that we were gonna get got by the teenagers. Teenagers were scary, man. You know, now I'm not a teenager anymore. This is the first year I'm not a teen. I guess 19 is a teen. And, you know, it didn't really matter, you know. It wasn't scary. Actually, you know, I'd scratch that. Teenagers can still be kind of scary, you know. Those dudes are fucking freaky. But I have this vivid memory of being at the park. The same park I was just talking about, the same woods. And there's all these teenagers hanging there. And I was like, every time there was them, my brother and his friends were like, oh, let's go over to them, like, and like, you know, talk to them, like, it'll be fun. But I was always like, you know, heart racing, freaking out, like, but it was exhilarating. It was fun, but it was scary, you know. And I remember going over to this group, and they were all like having a, you know, I don't know, they were hanging out, I guess. They were probably realistically like 13, 14, but to a 7-year-old, that was like an adult, you know. That was this like being of knowledge and like, but like angst and like, you know, like freaky shit, you know. And I remember this kid, this ginger kid, he kind of looked like Dez from Austin and Ally. Yeah, he kind of looked like him, and he got his phone out and took a picture of me. He like laughed at me, and I was like kind of like, you know, like kind of like freaked out by it. And he takes his phone out and he takes a picture of me, and then goes, this little guy looks like the Milky Way kid. Because back then I had all this long, luscious, I guess I still do, you know what I mean? Damn. But I had this like long, curly Milky Way kid as her, and like I did look like the Milky Way kid, you know. Put me in some boots, put me in some cowboy boots and like a little necktie thing, whatever they had, little neck scarf. I would look like that kid, you know. And he takes a picture of me, he's like, this little kid looks like the Milky Way kid. And just like, to my little 7-year-old brain, that was like he shot me. It was like it was like that was the end. Because now he had this picture of me, and I was like, you know, going off of like the Disney Channel, not even Disney Channel, but like the odd like kind of like angsty teen film I might have seen. Like I was like, oh no, this is gonna be sent around the class, and like I'm gonna get bullied, and like I had this vivid image of like them all sat, you know, like being like boop boop, and like send it and be like, oh, look at this fucking kid, you know, like I was the fucking center of the world, like I was the main character, you know. I think that's what anxiety sometimes, you realize it's because you probably just think you're more important than you are, so you get anxiety about it. It's like, come on, bro, it's gonna be fine. But yeah, I just vivid memory of that. Yeah, I don't know. That's being a kid's hard, you know. Being a kid's hard when your birthday party is just a big haul, you know. I'm going back to that. That actually kind of pissed me off because I was looking forward to it, and that's all it was. But I vividly remember at the very end when everyone's going home, I was like, okay, finally, we can do what I want to do on my birthday, which is play Tig and shit, you know. So I start running around. I'm like, Tig, you're it. You know, like a couple kids playing, like, Tig, you're it. And the door's open, and this kid walks in. Now, he's one of my best friends at the time, and I was like, where's he been? This, you know, I've been asking for this guy, and he's not here. And he walks in at the end, holding his present, and he's just this big glowing smile on his face. And I look over, and I'm like, well, why is he here now? Like, the party started at, you know, 4, ended at 7. It's 7 o'clock now. I'm pretty sure it was 7 o'clock. I'm good at remembering shit, I think. I don't know. I might have made that up. But he walks in, big smile on his face, and I'm like, yo, why are you so late to the party? You know, and then it clicks that his mom messed up. You know, his mom messed up, and she thought the party started at 7, and it didn't. And this kid just starts bawling, crying. I remember seeing him sat on like a bench at the side, just clutching the present that he got for me. think it was a Nerf gun. I think it was a Nerf gun that he already had, and then he bought another one because he was like, "This is a good gun," you know. Nerf gun, by the way, YouTube. I'm not talking. He didn't get me a real blicky. So yeah, I just remember him bawling, crying, and I was like, "Oh damn," you know. Like, what happened? Why is he so late? Why is he? And it was his mom messed up the timing, and you know, and that sucked for that kid. You know, he missed the whole party. That could have been the best party ever. It wasn't. You know, it wasn't. We had a children's entertainer, and I was not entertained. But you know, I felt bad for the kid, and luckily, a bad thing turned into a good thing. And my mom was like, you know, let's let this kid come over to our house afterwards, and like, you know, y'all can keep playing. And you know what? It's a good memory. You know, I think that's why that day sticks in my head so much. Is like, you know, it was a bad thing turned to a good thing, and like I just kept going, and all of a sudden, you know, I could have fun. You know, because I wasn't having fun at the birthday party, but you know, if this kid's mom didn't mess up the time, then I wouldn't have had fun. I think everything happens for a reason. You know, I think everything happens for a reason. Sometimes it's hard not to see when something bad happens, like why it happened, you know, and how the chain of events and the butterfly effect, Ashton Kutcher type shit, how it would lead to possibly a good thing. You know, I don't know how much I buy into that, because it seems kind of stupid to think that everything leads good. I think it's more like everything kind of evens out. But even then, does it? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being stupid. But I do think it's fun to see the chain of events that could happen that leads to where you are today. Because, I don't know, I mean, I've been thinking about this anyway, but I've been watching a lot of How I Met Your Mother. Nearly finished it, by the way. I'm going to have my thoughts on that soon. Maybe I'll even record it, you know, because we were thinking of doing like a little party thing. You know, get a couple of friends over and they can watch me watch the last 3 episodes because they want to know my reaction because they've already seen it. So that could be interesting, you know, because I've heard that it's not the best ending, you know, and I want to know why. I want to know what it's like. But yeah, the whole fate thing, you know, I have a vivid memory. I'm talking a lot about being a kid to this episode. I don't know, maybe I'm reminiscing a lot. But I have this vivid memory of, I went into town with my mother, you know, just like walking around and stuff. You know, she was buying stuff. And we bump into this kid who was in my brother's year for 1 year, when he was like 4, you know. And at this point, I'm like maybe 8. So this was like this kid hasn't even been friends with my brother for the last like 4 years anyway. 4 or 5 years anyway. So like, you know, I think his mum just like knew the mum, and you know, our mums were chatting, and this kid comes over to me, and he's like a couple of years older than me, and he was like, "Hello," you know, and I was like, "Hello," and he just jumped straight to the point. He said, "Have you ever played Skyrim?" And I was like, "No, I haven't played Skyrim. What's Skyrim?" And he was like, and this was his pitch for Skyrim, The Elder Scrolls V, was "Oh, it's really good. You can be a lizard person, and they can breathe underwater, and you can breathe underwater without the breathe underwater necklace." And I was like, "Yo, that sounds crazy. You can be a lizard person, and you can breathe. Oh my god!" Okay, so so they leave, and I say to my mom like, "Yo, I gotta play this game Skyrim. You know, you can breathe underwater." And we go to the game shop. No, we didn't have GameStop, but it was the game shop. It was just called Game. You know, drop the stop, it's cleaner. And we go in there, and I look for it, and I find Skyrim. And I don't know if I had money. I was thinking about this because it was probably not. When did Skyrim come out? Like 2000 and no. When did Skyrim come out? I don't know, but I probably got it in like 2013. Maybe 2012. So I'm trying to figure out how expensive this game was. But either way, I bought it then and there, or my mum bought it. So thank you so much, Mother, for buying me this game that I had no idea. And the cover of it is just literally the logo. You know, I didn't even know what it was. I take it home and I put it in, and it's the guy getting his head chopped off, and I was like, this game is lit. You know, this game is sick. And I was the lizard, whatever they were called. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. And you know, I see this, and I'm telling this story because would I be sat here dressed as a wizard if I didn't play Skyrim as a wee boy? You know, that little interaction that between my mother and this other kid's mother. Oh, I keep saying mother. That's mom or mum. Without that tiny interaction, without that, hey, look, that's the person I know from like 4 years ago, I might not be sat here wearing this fuck-ass wig. You know what I mean? Because that kind of like, you know, I want to say the biggest leap is that like, oh, it's wizardy shit and that's Skyrim. Sure, but the realistic way of it is, you know, from getting that game, it came with a map. It came with the Skyrim map. And I took it into school one day, and I remember showing it off, and this kid called Jake, who I was somewhat friends with at the time, he goes, I know that game. I've got Oblivion. Have you ever played Oblivion? I was like, no, I don't know what Oblivion is. I don't bloody know what that is. So he, the next day, brings in his Oblivion map, and we're like looking at it, like, you know, like piecing it together, like, oh, look at this shit. And that kind of starts this friendship, you know? And we start like playing Pokemon cards and shit, and like, you know, it kind of trails into me, you know, like being friends with this guy. And if I wasn't friends with that guy, then I probably wouldn't have gotten into like, you know, making videos and shit, because this guy kind of showed me, you know, like Game Grumps, and showed me, you know, stuff like like YouTube videos and making stuff. And I remember we wanted to make our own gaming channel called, oh my god, it was called the Pancake Gamers. And, oh my god, that's so lame. That was like the thing back in the day, though, you know what I mean? You would just take a food item and be like, game, gamer, lemon gamer, banana gamer.
Let me tell you about banana.
Or like ninja. You know, he just took the word ninja. You know, that was what you did back in the day. Or like goblin, troll, you know, and then you put a couple of numbers. But yeah, so we were called the Pancake Gamers, and I guess at the time I was kind of thinking about filmmaking slightly. I don't know. I think I had iMovie, you know, and I was kind of looking into that. And I remember saying like, we should make a film. We should make a short film to introduce this new Pancake Gaming channel, you know. So the first video we posted was it was called Cosmic Wars. It was a Star Wars spoof. Terrible film, you know, terrible. I used a green screen in it. Oh, it was a blue screen actually. It was his kid's blanket, and we put it on his washing line. And I bought an app on like my iPod Touch, or like my iPad Mini, for like £3, and all the app did was green screen. Back then you couldn't green screen on like an iPhone without that. And we made this whole film called Cosmic Wars. I probably have it somewhere. I don't know, but that then stemmed this love of filmmaking, and from that day, we changed the name of Pancake Gaming to Watermelon Studios. Ooh, saying that name out loud, like, that kind of freaked me out a little bit, you know. Because the story of Watermelon Studios was, we kept making short films, and like every week we would make short films. To be fair, Cosmic Wars took us a long time. It took us like 4 weekends. Probably took us like a month to make that first film. Terrible film. But then we slowly got better at it. Well, better is a strong word, but we started making films, you know, and now I'm in film school as a 20-year-old. And it probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't make these films with these guys that I met because I had the Skyrim poster, and if I didn't have the Skyrim poster because of the guy that met my mother. You know what I mean? If we were on a different street, I wouldn't be sat in this dorm room right now, you know? Maybe, I don't know. I don't fully know. There's a lot of other factors, obviously, but I always come back to that fucking Skyrim thing. I don't know why I always do, but that's like my biggest butterfly effect. You know, so Skyrim holds a big place in my heart, so which is why I'm doing WizWalk, you know. That's not why, that was just a, you know, wizardy game, but, you know, I realized, you know, it is a big deal. You know, it's a big deal for me. But yeah, going back to Watermelon Studios, though, there's a tale to be told, though, you know. I was loving it. I was on top of the world, making short films every week, and I would show them to everyone in my class, and people would watch them, and I would never, ever show them to my parents, though. I had this crippling anxiety about them seeing any part of me, seeing what I created. I just couldn't do it. And I remember this kid from the year below saw some of my videos and was telling his mum about them, and then she watched some of them and then told my mum, like, oh, I saw your kid's YouTube videos, really cool. And they were like, my parents were like, you know, I didn't even know he was making films. You know, they didn't even know what I was doing with my time. I was like the talk of the town, but the only people that didn't know were my parents, and I couldn't, you know, let them into that world. Looking back, it was fucking stupid to do that as a child, you know. You know, I could have just shown them, but I think I was acting in some of the videos and, you know, being silly and goofy, and I guess I just didn't want them to see me being silly and goofy. You know, I didn't want them to see their own child having fun. I don't know why, but yeah, it fucking sucks that I did that as a kid. I think it wasn't my fault. I think I just, you know, had a lot of anxiety. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going really deep. I'm really deep in this. But yeah, Watermelon Studios kept going into high school when I was 12. And, you know, I made some new friends there, and I showed them the videos, and, you know, I made a friend through that, and we started, like, you know, getting into filmmaking and stuff. And we made a couple films and posted them on there, and then, you know, this was maybe 2017 when I was like 13. That's dating me, actually. That's aging me quite, like, in the opposite way. Like, people probably like, what the fuck, you were that old in 2017? But yeah, you know what, fuck you, you're old, bro. I'm young, you know, I've got time. Got time on you, because I have friends now who are like 28, and, you know, he was probably, you know, in fucking college by then. But yeah, so I go into high school, I show some people these films, and, you know, I'm terrified of them getting out, you know, because you go into this new fucking world of these people you don't know, and you don't want them to see the cringe. You know, like we were talking about at the beginning, you don't embrace the cringe in high school. You're terrified of people seeing any part of you that is slightly out of the norm, because it's such an easy target. You know, I remember I used to play D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and I was terrified, literally terrified of anyone catching wind of it, that I wouldn't let my friends talk about it. Like, if I would be like, do never say the words Dungeons and Dragons, you know, don't say, you know, I was like freaking out, you know. And this sweet kid, he was only in our year for like a few months. We wanted him to play with D&D with us, and he couldn't come because his parents like really strict or whatever. But the next day he comes into school and he's like, oh, hey guys, how was your Dungeons and Dragons game? And I was like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my god, like, you can't say that, like, you know, I kind of like freaked out. Like, anyone could. You know what I mean? I was freaking out because I thought I was going to get bullied. I thought people were going to make fun of me. But at the end of the day, everyone's focused on their own shit, that it doesn't matter about anyone else's shit. You know what I mean? I think it's stupid that I was like that. I think it's still stupid that I'm like that. You know, I'm not showing everyone this podcast because I think it is kind of lame. I think it can be viewed as lame. But I'm doing it anyway. Fuck it. Fuck this shit, man. But yeah, Watermelon Studios, it came to a drastic end when people caught word of it. You know, it was like 2017 and people were trying to do the big content at the time was like vlogging, fidget spinners, shit like that. And in the school of kids making YouTube videos, most of them were, "Hi guys, today we're gonna be going to screw fix because my dad's buying some screws. And then I'm gonna go home and eat a sandwich." They were trying to like vlog, but they literally were, fucking 12, 13. Like they had nothing to do. They had nothing to vlog about. But people would watch them. People would hate watch them, to make fun. And it was this big thing of, it just fed the fire for people to sit and watch them. And I wasn't. There was a few kids that were making that. They had a group called Can I say it? Yeah, fuck it, I can say it. Remember how there was the Team 10? Well, these kids had the high five, because it was like high five, but I'm pretty sure there was 6 of them. But they were like this, this YouTube group in the school that everyone low-key made fun of. I was terrified of being, associated with that because, I was like making short films. They were still kind of cringe, but I was, I wanted to make short films, and I died down. I stopped making them, but I still had this YouTube channel, and this kid found out about it, who also made YouTube videos. And I don't know if he shouted it out in one of his videos. I don't know how the word spread, but I was in biology one day. I can still view it. I still can see the seat I was sat in, and the girl across from me who turned to me and said, I saw all your YouTube videos last night. And at this point, I had freaked out already. And I'd gone through and I'd privated each video so that no one could see them. I didn't unlist them. I privated them so no one could see them. And this girl turns to me and says, "I watched all your YouTube videos last night." And I just think my heart sinks, my heart drops, I'm terrified. I'm like ready to throw up from anxiety. I'm like, "How did you see these videos?" And she was like, "Oh, this guy." She was like, "Oh, I don't know. I just kind of." She didn't give me a straight answer. She was kind of like, and and I think she kind of said that this other kid shouted it out, and maybe he put a link in his description. So in my head, I was like, "How did this link to the videos if they were privated? They weren't even unlisted." And I freaked out, and I went home that night and I double checked that yes, they were privated, but I was still terrified of this link floating around out there for people to find and laugh at. And so I sat and I watched each one of the videos one last time, and then I pressed delete. And I had no backups. That was it. It was, I didn't have a lot of storage on my iPad mini. And yeah, that was it. It was all these videos just gone into the ether. And I've tried getting them back on like the Wayback Machine, but it's just gone. It's really fucking sad, There's like a capsule of I don't know, maybe like 3 years of my childhood life where I was getting into filmmaking, and it was all just like poofed away in one night just because this awful girl, she was pretty mean actually, she wasn't a very nice person, decided to, try and take a little stab at me. She probably was lying. She probably didn't even watch them. The link probably didn't work. She might have seen them like way before, before I privated them. And I deleted them. And I'm thinking back to it now, and it was a lot of videos, It wasn't like 3. It was like, I had a lot. And I just want to go back and see them like one more time. But I think there's no point. There's never in my life am I going to see these videos again. I think maybe Cosmic Wars survived, the very first one. I think I have that downloaded on an iPod Nano. I think I have that on a disc somewhere, but I left it at this kid's house, and well, I heard he's got some strange political takes these days, so I'm probably going to stay away from him. But yeah, it's a sad tale. Watermelon Studios is this thing of the past, and when I say it out loud, it causes me some anxiety. It makes me feel like I'm being bullied again. I even think I was even bullied about it. I think I was terrified of being bullied about it to the point where I killed my own creation. You know? And I think that's what we're learning today, is to embrace the cringe. You know, just get out there and fucking do some stuff. Because no one cares other than you. You know, no, it's not that deep at the end of the day. You know, shout out to the cringe. As long as you're not being, like, weird, you know what I mean? As long as you're not being, like... as long as you're not hurting anyone else. You know what I mean? Be as cringe as you want. You know what I mean? Try to be impressive, though. Impressive cringe is what I live by. If you can... Sorry, guys. If you can make something look really cool and impressive, but it's still kind of cringe, then it's fine. Like this. I think this is somewhat impressive cringe. You know, all the Blender stuff and the VHS effects. And, you know, it's an impressive thing. Still kind of lame, though. It won't be once people start watching it, I hope. I think the lame part is that these are getting like 15 views a piece. But you know what? Shout out to those 15 fucking people, dude. That's my boy. I don't know how long I've been going. My screen turned off, so I can't even see it. I'm hoping it's been longer than 20 minutes. But you know what? Either way, I'm going to be calling that a day, though, guys. Look out for more videos coming soon. I'm still going to try and stick to one every Friday. Might be a 2D episode next week. I'm not sure. I want to do more WizWalks as well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If not, go have a look at that. I don't know who you guys are, you know. I think the only person probably watching this is Jake. Shout out, Jake. Yeah. I'll see you guys later. I kept the wig on this whole episode. I didn't take this shit off once. Oh my god. Ugh. Anyway. I'll see y'all later. Bye. Oh, wait. You know how people go, what's up? Well, I'm gonna go, goodbye. Goodbye. See ya.
Let me tell you about banana.